Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2024 horror prequel, A Quiet Place Day One. The film is co-written by and directed by Michael Sarnowski, and it stars Joseph Quinn, Lupita Nyong'o, and Alex Wolff. Right. Okay. This follows two characters. We've got Samira and Eric, and it focuses on these two characters and how they cope after the arrival of the alien creatures that we first met in A Quiet Place a number of years ago. So they're in New York City, the aliens land, chaos ensues, and everyone has to learn very, very quickly how to survive in these circumstances, and they learn very quickly the best way to survive is to be very, very quiet. They have to make their way across New York, these two characters, Eric and Samira, in order to try and get to safety. Right. What are my thoughts on A Quiet Place Day One? The Quiet Place franchise is, I think, a pretty exemplary franchise in regards to originality and horror. I mean, we're getting to the third film now, so the originality thing is kind of not there anymore. The first one was incredibly effective and original, full of thrills, and that's the real signature of these movies, is the tension and the thrills rather than the horror, I suppose, even though there are horror elements. Of course they are. And this film, even though it's got a different person kind of behind the camera, we've got Michael Sarnowski, who directed Pig a couple of years ago, the Nicolas Cage film, that I thought was absolutely superb. Brilliant film, if you've not seen it. And we've got John Krasinski, who I think is one of the co-writers here, potentially a producer, well, I'm not really sure, I haven't checked. And so it's got obviously a similar feel and tone of the other two films, but it feels like it's got a little bit of a different look. It's got a different pair of eyes kind of looking over this now. So it's kind of got some different brushstrokes going on here. And at times, the moments in between the tension here are filled with some really quite tender and beautifully shot moments. Very emotional moments as well, and that's one of the main things I took away from this film. It was very emotional. I really had a lump in my throat in this film a couple of times, and especially at the end. And that's because I've been taken on a journey with these characters, and I really cared about them. And it's quite a impactful ending, really, and quite a sad ending, to say the least. But it's again, it's beautifully shot, and even though, like I say, this is day one, you get to see a hell of a lot more of these creatures than we have in any of the other films, and they are fully realised on the screen, and they look, to me, they looked absolutely outstanding. Really vicious. I mean, and there's a really telling scene where, like, aeroplanes or helicopters kind of flying overhead, and you see literally these creatures swarming over the buildings. So you get an idea of like how the city really stood no chance against these creatures, and it's really effective, I think, this film, at getting that message across. Like, the population really had no chance here. And it's just really pockets of survivors that you've seen here. And like I say, the film focuses in particular on Eric and Samira. And again, the signature of these movies is the high tension scenes that kind of, white knuckle stuff. I mean, they've been full of them, these movies, and this one really is no different. I mean, there's some very, very tense scenes here. The sewer one in particular I thought was very, very tense, but they all are, whenever they're kind of creeping around, trying not to be heard, and, you can see the absolute horror and fear in the eyes of, you know, the characters trying to be quiet, sort of thing, and you can see these creatures off in the distance, and any wrong move, any, you know, unfortunate noise made, and it's the end of you. You're done. And that, again, the film gets that across superbly, I think, in all of these tension-filled scenes. There's some very good chase scenes as well. There's a really good scene where they're trying to get in a building in like a revolving door, and it's trapped against a suitcase, and again, that results in a noise, and it's just like panic, panic, fear, run, panic, panic, fear, and till you get to the point where, you know, you need to kind of head out for something that you need. And what this film does quite smartly, really, is the Samira character. She's essentially very ill, and she needs treatment, and she needs medications, and that plays quite a big part in the film, as does her cat, that I thought was a wonderful addition to the film. This cat, it must be the most placid, chilled out cat I think I've ever seen on film. Because it's either being hugged by Lupita Nyong'o's character or Joseph Quinn's character. You know, the carting it about and hugging it and all this kind of stuff, and you just think it. I mean, it might be a few cats. I don't know what they used for filming, but properly chilled out and well trained is this cat. And genuinely, there was a handful of scenes where I was desperate for this cat not to get, you know, taken out by these creatures. I just didn't want it to happen, and that, you know, it's no secret I love cats. But again, it I love it when they kind of add these animals, domestic pets, into these movies, and the majority of us are kind of like, well, you can kill as many humans as you want, but I don't want that cat to get it. And this film is absolutely the same. So I think this is a great addition to the franchise. Okay, the element of surprise has gone here. You know, it feels a little bit more of a journey for just these two characters for the most part of the film. So it's, even though they're in New York, it's quite an insular story, which is an interesting way to do it. I thought it was going to be like on a larger scope, this film, and it isn't. It's a very personal film, really. More so, really, than the first two in a lot of ways, because like I said, the majority of the film is just these two characters, and some of the interactions they have with each other are, you know, are very thoughtful and quite beautiful at times. You know, I thought it was very, very nicely made, and some of the scenes where the less they say, the more you get from that scene, if that makes sense. So I think a lot of thought has been put into, you know, the scenes where they don't say anything at all, or very, very little, and it's like the interactions between the characters that, you know, speaks volumes, and it does feel like a lot of thought has been gone into it. So yeah, I think this is a great addition to the franchise. It's not, you know, frightening in the traditional sense. For me, it's very tense, and it is edge of the seat stuff. But it's not in the way of, you know, it's not gory or anything like that, and it's not terrifying sort of thing. It's just white knuckle stuff, which is what this franchise is well known for, of course. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on A Quiet Place Day 1, and I will of course be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.